In this state, the biggest state in Australia, we sometimes call it the Texas of Australia because we're the big boys. You can have your little bit of Australia, but we'll have the big bit, and we call that Western Australia. And ever since Federation, there's always been the desire to be free of Federation and return to the independence that we had before Federation took that freedom away. And since Federation, there's been a considerable discontent. We haven't had that freedom to form our own destiny and make decisions in our own interest and in the interest of our generations to come. So secession's still alive and very strong in Western Australia. In 1933 a referendum was held and only something like 2-1 voted in favour. And that referendum still, from our point of view, stays in place. It still has to be fulfilled. There is a duty on the head of all those people that get into the state parliament to honour that secession vote. They haven't been doing it, and where we are now in the secession movement is to start looking at the formation of a new political party, and we will take government and we will ensure that secession becomes the destiny for Western Australia. And as it so happens at the moment, there is a Western Australian First Party that's being formed, and it's just short of its number of members to be able to register. So those who are interested in being Western Australians, here's an opportunity to get in touch with the Western Australia First. It doesn't cost you anything to join. Get your name registered in there, and once they've reached their quota, required quota, to form a political party, we can start challenging the federal government.
And Wally, why is it imperative to get this membership up at the moment? I think there's something brewing, maybe a double dissolution, is there?
That's right. We all know that the world economy's in trouble. Now, Western Australia shouldn't be, or not even all of Australia shouldn't be in this position if we had have kept away from this accursed globalisation. These people who have held charge of Australia give themselves away every time they say the international obligation or part of the global community and all that nonsense. That's why we're in trouble. We are dragged in with the problems of the rest of the world. If you break away, in fact the future now for most countries now is to look after themselves. Doesn't mean to say stop cutting off trade and that. When we've got trade and surplus and things, that's no problem. If someone's got something to trade with us, something that we want and they want, it's a mutual agreement. There's no need to be tied into these world organisations that lay down rules, you can do this and you can't do that.
What about the economics of the secession? Can you just tell us about the imbalance of the Commonwealth in terms, and I mean wealth in terms of economic wealth, between what Western Australia contributes to the economy compared to what the Federation or the Commonwealth government gives back to West Australia?
What people should keep in mind is that the central government makes nothing. It is the states that generate the incomes, the wealth of this country. The central government taxes those states. They accumulate these huge amount of money, and then they start working out where they distribute it. They then redistribute it to the states. And it's always, quite often, with strings attached. We'll give you so many billions, build that railway line, if you do this, if you take it. And Australians by now are quite fed up with that. And we're certainly heading for a showdown, there's no doubt about that. There is no problem with each state looking after itself. Now, this doesn't mean that we cut ourselves off from the rest of the states. We form a brotherhood of states in a sort of a federation or more of a confederation. We look after the other states if they're in trouble, and they'll probably come to our assistance if we're in trouble. There's no problem there. That's just simply a brotherhood arrangement. A lot of people come up with a defence thing. What are you going to do for defence? Well, same as we do now. We've been relying on America. Who are our enemies? Well, we don't know yet, but they're emerging. And we may be going into very serious times. Our numbers are small. Our enemies are large. All the education that we gave them has given them the capability of arming themselves to the level that we have. They know how to kill us with the weapons we showed them how to build. So we're in a very serious situation. That need not have ever happened. So independence is the first thing that we need. Every state, every country should look at them to themselves, see who they are. Well, we're Western Australians.
And what about the argument of the regions such as the Pilbara saying, well, if it's good enough for Western Australia to secede, it should be good enough for the Pilbara to secede? My comment on that, or my opinion is, well, they're not viable enough, but I think Western Australia certainly is viable.
We're a big state and quite vast. A lot of the areas totally unpopulated. The wealth up there in the mines are Kalgoorlie, the Pilbara, they're all part of Western Australia. Some people say, oh well, look, we're generating iron ore and you people down south are living off it. Well, don't forget, you might be in the Pilbara, but you're still Western Australian, because that state border goes right up there. And you're part of the big state. We'll help you, you'll help us. We're not really in a confrontation situation at this stage. We're in a, look, think Western Australian at the moment and start joining up.
Yes. And then if there are any divisions within the movement, we can sort them out democratically later on. But the aim is, there's one aim, it's a one aim party, and that hopefully will achieve secession. And then if there's differences, for example, whether it be a republic or not, that can be sorted out.
That's another issue.
Yeah. We're interviewing a famous person in the West Australian secession movement.
Yeah. Some of those things need to come stage by stage. Not to overdo the party thing, because that's doesn't belong to the secession. We're looking or encouraging it, and we'd like to see. It would certainly be a big help if people got behind and got this thing off the ground, and that with a party that's genuinely Western Australian means that we've got a voice in Parliament. At the moment, what you've got is party politics. People put their allegiance to the party. Well, where's their allegiance to the state in which they're supposed to be representing?
Yes, exactly.
Which is good.
And so the problem in the past has been that some of the politicians that have got into Parliament because they've backed the cause of secession, but the problem is, I guess, once they've gotten there, they've wanted to stay in there as long as possible and played the party line. Is that the issue?
Yes. Once you're elected as a party member and elected to government, you virtually owe yourself to that particular party. Now, the parties that exist in Australia are nationwide, and that doesn't necessarily mean that Western Australia has its special interest, unless it is a specific Western Australian party that has to be exclusively Western Australian, and that, for Western Australians, is the one to start looking for. There are big problems in the Parliament, as you realise. A lot of these people go in purely for self-interest. It's a nice little return if you can get into your seat into one of the chairs in Parliament, and you start looking at the returns that you get, the generous retirement allowances, the superannuation. That is a tool to buy loyalties, and that's why you get such rubbish coming out of the parliaments, even in the states, because these people are getting virtually bribed, you could say, and they toe the line, because if they don't, the word goes out and say, well, look, your chances of getting re-elected are not too good, and that's frightening to them because they're going to lose their lurks and perks. Well, we want people in there that are not frightened to stand up, even if their life depends on it. Western Australia and their people must come first.